So this is raw umber and cadmium red medium. I'm mixing more raw umber in here because what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to back to the really dark part in the back. And that shapes her dress, the pleats or the, okay, good. Now, I'm going to get to the part where it's highlighted. So when I get to this part where there's a highlight, I'm going to see what I'm doing. I am making the shadow. I'm going to zoom in. I'm making the shadow movement like the fold, the movement of the fold. Now, later on, if I find that I need to darken this area more, I will do that. But for now, I'm going to let it dry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get my reading glasses when I stop recording because
You're using quite a bit more of the darker color of the raw umber in this part.
in this part, yes. Yes, there's more raw umber in here than cadmium red medium. It's a lot more raw umber. But just pay attention to, when you're doing this, to the dress, what do you call those? Pleats? Creases? Yes, just pay attention to that because this is what you're doing. You are using negative painting to shape the positive.
Okay.
Okay. Now, all I'm doing right now, for now, is I'm putting the darkest parts of the crease in there, kind of. And it doesn't matter because, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. These little dark shadows right now, because once we start highlighting, all of this is going to change a bit. But it just gives me an idea where the dark shadows are. Right. This is almost like brown, just brown. It has a bit of red in it, but it's mostly brown. Now I'm adding a bit more red, and my color is not thick. You can see it's like a sketch. It's a bit, I'm gonna add a bit of more red in here. Yeah, it's a bit translucent. Okay, good. That's easier for me when I start highlighting. I can see this is kind of medium tone, so it has more red. There's more red in here than the raw umber. Right. Now, let's take this. This is the outer part of the wrap. And slowly, it's kind of like a sketching. All right, a bit more. So this is a bit highlighted, a bit more. There's a bit more highlight in here. And what I'm going to do in a minute is take my burnt umber, or I'm sorry, raw umber, or whatever color you're using, and just kind of darken this area a bit at the bottom. And all this is done like again, it's like a thin layer. It's not heavy. We're just preparing. Now this part is dark, I mean dry. So what I can do is take just raw umber, nothing else. Go back and darken this a bit more in the back. There's a reflected light in there too, but we'll see after when we start highlighting. Okay, good. All right. So this is cadmium. I'm using cadmium red medium, and I added cadmium red light to it right now. And I'm just putting it where I'm going to start putting highlights very soon. Okay, now go up here. And this is where the highlight is going to be, like the strong highlight. So you see right now, you see how it looks a bit funny because there's the dark in here, and then there's the You know, I'm putting the true color of the throw on. So what I'm going to do is use the reds I'm using right now, cadmium red light and cadmium red medium, but I'm going to make them a bit more transparent. Now, I did this opaque, no transparency right here. But now where the dark is, because I don't want this strong brown for shadows and then red right next to it. It doesn't look good. So I want this to be red as well, this dark brown shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glaze this with red.
The combo red light and medium.
Yes, combo red light and red medium. I'm going to glaze it. It's like doing a grisaille. Grisaille is the same thing. You glaze whatever you have painted underneath all of the darks and lights, and then you come and you glaze them with a transparent color. It will unify all of these without you having to darken your reds to show where the, see, this is red now. It's awesome. It's red instead of brown. I'm just glazing.
It used to be pretty watery for sure then, if it's, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you could see, I don't know if you can see my color, but I'm gonna push this a bit this way. Can you see this?
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's a bit transparent, yeah. It's watery. Perfect. I'll do the same. I don't know if I need to do the same in the back here, but I'll do it anyway. And because it's a transparent, it's a glaze, it doesn't really matter. It dries darker. The dark underneath will take over. So even if you, once you put your color, you find that your color is a bit too light, it looks like it's light. It's really not. It's just, once it's dry, it will, the dark underneath will take over. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my combination of cadmium red light and cadmium red medium. So I'm not glazing now here. I'm using strong color. I'm just making sure I'm not going into an area where there's a dark shadow, because I don't want to lose this dark shadow. So if I'm using a thick color right now, I'm going to make sure that I'm using that thick color where there's a highlight. Then I'll go back to where the shadow area is, and I'll glaze the shadow area. All right. I'm adding water now, and I'm going to glaze this part. And by the time it's dry, if it's not dark enough, if I lose that dark, I'll just go back and use raw umber and put it back. I'm using raw umber in cadmium red medium. And it's the same technique as what I was doing with the throw. It's hard to see what the ring looks like, but we can improvise. So I'm doing the red part. Oh, I went back or went in too much. Try to remove this, because this part of the ring down here, that's actually her finger. Right. Now let's take cadmium red light. Again, cadmium red light. The color underneath is still wet, so it's absorbing it's absorbing the highlight, the cadmium red light. Now let it dry a bit. This is raw umber and cadmium red medium again. I'm gonna let it dry and then I'll highlight that. So now we're going to use just cadmium red light. We're going to start adding some of this highlight slowly, because you don't want to have a sharp line. I'm just kind of making sure that I'm making sure that the end right here is soft. Right there. Just cadmium red light. I'm watching the shape of that throw, because once you put highlight, you can see. Okay. Then load my brush and come down here. And I'm trying to, my brush stroke is more of a, it's not straight. It has a bit of a curve. Now let's get to this part that's bothering us and try to, all right, let's do this. See if we take this highlight and we do this. Same here. Soften this gap, that strong shadow. And we can, at this point, keep this line, but the shadow here is softened. Okay, now, again, highlight. See, this is not strong enough still. Let's see if we can use cadmium orange. I'm going to take, if you have cadmium orange, mix it with this cadmium red light. I do have cadmium orange. I don't know, I'm not going to go get it. So I'm making an orange. So I'm using cadmium yellow light, mixing it with cadmium red light. And I'm going to come here. All right, that's good. That's good. That's good. All right. Now again.
Orange.
Yeah. The red underneath will take over. It won't look as orangey, but it just gives that red a bit of stronger highlight. I'm gonna go across this way just to soften a bit the edges. This is more like a glaze. All right. That's good. I'm taking a bit of raw umber and I'm mixing my raw umber with cadmium red light. I'm going to come here and adjust the darks. It's like a glaze right now. I'm glazing.
This time you're glazing the darker.
Hmm?
You're glazing the darker tone.
Yes, I am adjusting the darker tones in here. Because once you start putting highlights, you can tell if you need to go back and darken or adjust or soften the other part of the painting, like because the highlight will show you that. Will show you where you need to work, where you need to adjust. Okay, so now I'm going to take just raw umber, and it's kind of opaque, and I'm going to come here and here. And I think down here as well. There. Um, okay. Get some white and see if we add white. It's very interesting because when you look at it, you look at the reference, you see right here, you see this is really highlighted right here.
Yeah.
Then it's medium, and then this is dark. So dark, medium, light.
It's got that light reflection of the. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do that. I'll put a bit of white in my a touch of red in my white. This is just orange again. Acrylic dries darker, so trying to put the highlight back on again if possible. I'll go back to my raw umber and take cadmium red light in my raw umber and come back here. Try to darken a bit this area here. Or actually cadmium red light and I'm sorry, cadmium red medium and raw umber. Sometimes what happens is that when you start adding highlights, you'll see that your darks are not dark enough. You need to be, they need to be adjusted. Right. So I'm taking cadmium red light and I'm just going to start adding my highlights in here. The strong highlights. And I'm just going to keep an eye on, this is just cadmium red light. I'm just going to keep an eye on the reference. I'll try to follow what's happening in the reference, but it's not going to happen exactly the same. How it's drying darker, but that's acrylics. All right, so now I lost some of the darks. I'm going to take again raw umber and cadmium red medium. I'll come here and try to get that shadow in there. It's more like a glaze what I'm doing right now. It's just raw umber and cadmium red medium. Go back to cadmium red light. I'm going to darken this a bit. It's still wet, so it's good when I darken this with wet paint. I don't have hard edges like these. Okay. I'm gonna widen a bit this dark in there. Okay, and just soften this. Okay. All right, let's try to highlight it a bit more. So I'm adding a bit more of a cadmium red, cadmium yellow light in my cadmium yellow, in my cadmium red light. I'm just going to highlight this a bit more. Just push it down in.
Did you say yellow or is it orange?
Yeah, yellow.
Okay, so you used orange on the other side, okay.
Yeah, this is like the strongest
Okay.
highlight. And I'll do the same here, just a bit. Again, down here. And I guess right here. I had to go back and adjust the darks because when I started highlighting, it turned out a bit, the highlight turned out a bit too strong. So I'm going to soften right now the darks in here. Oh.
So you're softening the darks with,
Yeah, with raw amber and cadmium red light,
okay,
like I did here.
right.
Okay. Raw amber, cadmium red light. It's like a very soft glaze. And now I'm going to take white again, white and red. So cadmium red light and white. Mix them together, a lot more white, just a hint of the cadmium red light. Now I can increase the amount of white and go back here in the center of the highlight. I guess I need to wait for it to dry a bit. I'm gonna try to glaze this area with ultramarine violet and raw umber, but more like a glaze. So it's not a heavy, opaque color. I just find that this area here needs to be slightly darker.
So raw umber and,
Ultramarine violet.
okay,
I'll wait for it to dry, and if it needs more, I'll add another layer. I'll keep adding layers of glaze until it's really the right darkness in here. Also in here. Okay. Right. Okay, so let's do the same combination, cadmium, raw umber and ultramarine violet, and put it in here. Again, ultramarine violet and raw umber. Just gonna come here. Even in the shadowy area, you might find a bit of darks, stronger darks. Mm. I'm putting a tiny bit of cadmium red light just to soften. This is cadmium red light with raw umber and ultramarine violet, just to soften the line between the darks and lights. There. This is still light. Let's put one more layer. Raw umber, ultramarine violet. Let's make it into more like a soft glaze. Wipe my brush. Make sure that you wipe your brush from, because this is really dark, so. Using a round brush for this helps, because what I'm doing is I'm using the tip of my brush to spread the color. Reload my brush, wipe it, and use the tip. Okay. Let's go out a bit. Yep, that looks good.
Lael, the white reflection,
Yes.
that white and cadmium red light?
Yes, yes. White and cadmium red light for the first layer. It's like a light pink. And now, because this is dry already at this point, so I'm taking a bit of more white with my cadmium red light, and I'm going to put a stronger reflection here. Not all over the whole,
Mhm.
you know, just a tiny bit. This here needs to be darker. I need to darken this a bit. It's too light. So I'm taking my raw umber. I can put cadmium red light in it. It's fine. Just make sure it's. And then I'm going to wipe my brush again. Come here.
Lael, I'm going to get going. It's Deborah. It's 3 o'clock.
Okay.
I have to
Okay.
think so, but thank you. That looks, I love the red.
Yeah, thanks.
The red, it's sort of just
It just pops,
makes
right?
everything pop, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll see you
All right.
next week. Take care.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Good luck with the
Mo-
constipation problem over there
With
with the dog.
the dog, yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, all right. Okay, so now what I'm doing is a line of highlighted red here. I'll tell you why, because this is not a thin fabric. So when you have a thick fabric that's folding, or a thick fabric, the edge is usually a bit more highlighted. There. It just gives the edge a thickness.
And you used what color to do that?
I just used cadmium red light, and cadmium yellow light. So it's a light orange. And now again, because it's dry, I'm just going to go in and highlight a bit more with cadmium, with cadmium red light that has cadmium yellow light in it. I'm just highlighting a bit more the red in here, just in here. Not the whole thing. All right.